I really have wanted to do this for a while, and I thought it would be fun to film because frankly it would be easier to keep track. But oh, someone else wanted to say hello. I don't know if you heard that. For a while I've really wanted to track how much I actually read in a week because I read a lot. That is to say, I feel like I give a lot of time every single day to reading, but I'm not a super quick reader. This week, I would track both the amount of time that I spend reading as well as the pages that I've read, and I would make it into a little bit of a reading vlog. I could potentially finish one book as well as maybe start another one. We shall see. No idea. We're gonna find out together, and it's gonna be a hell of a time, so get cozy. I'm currently reading Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee, and oh my gosh. This book is phenomenal. This book is really good. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's perfect. I don't think it's like an all-time favorite. I am about just over halfway through. We follow a family at the beginning of the turn of the century all the way through to, I'm assuming it's gonna be like the 60s or 70s, I'm not sure. A Korean family that moves to Japan and deals with horrific discrimination. It really is a epic, a sweeping tale about a family. It is not a story that has been told before. However, the format of like a generational saga has certainly been told before. So it's very approachable in its setup. The characters, oh my gosh, the characters are so good, and that they truly are what are making this story for me. However, it is quite heartbreaking and it's difficult to read. It's painful. Made for very easy reading because it just kind of sweeps you up and carries you through. So anytime that I've sat and read it, I feel like I have not struggled to focus and to keep reading. And frankly, I just want to keep reading it. So it's definitely a wonderful read and I highly recommend it. This morning, I sat down and I read, which I do every single morning. I always wake up and I sit and I read. It's my favorite way to start my day. And I try really hard not to look at my phone first thing. Sometimes I do, but it's usually just to like respond to messages and not actually for scrolling. I really try to limit my scrolling. The only two apps that I ever allow myself to look at first thing in the morning are Pinterest and YouTube, because I find with both of those, I tend to not really get sucked in. I can step away and I don't fall into like the constant endless scrolling. So I did not do that today because I was filming, which is great, and I think that that's going to really help me. And you're going to see how terrible I am at math in this video. It's going to be great. And I read for just over an hour and 8 minutes, and I read about 57 pages. So really not that much. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to make anyone feel badly if I'm like if I'm a quicker reader than they are and I'm saying, "Oh, that's not that much," but I just think that I feel like people assume that I'm a really quick reader because I read so much, when in reality, I think I just dedicate a lot of time to reading. Does that make sense? I don't really know why I'm clarifying that, but I just think that people get really sensitive about reading, and rightly so. I think it can be a very personal thing. So, anywho, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna eat my breakfast, and I'm gonna write, and I will continue on with the day, and I'll check back in the next time I'm reading. Hello. Oh my gosh, Roger's just about to steal my breakfast. It is Tuesday morning, and last night I finished Pachinko, and we will talk about that. I am just gonna read my morning book in the morning. I'm reading The Secret Network of Nature by Peter Wohlleben. I'm calling this my morning book, but it's not really like I read this every single morning, but it's just a nonfiction that I pick up in the morning time when I'm in between books or I don't necessarily feel like reading my fiction book. So I'm reading this. This is all about exactly what it sounds like. Each chapter follows the way various animals and plants are connected in nature, and it's really interesting, but it is very like pop science, which is totally fine. It's really approachable. It's a very easy read. It's quick to get into, and it's understandable if you don't know anything about science, which I don't. So I am enjoying it. Let's see what the next chapter is. Why deer taste bad to trees. I need something a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to read. Basically, I just need my comfort genre, which is fantasy romance. So I'm gonna read Dark Skies by Danielle L. Jensen. This is a follow-up, but it's not necessarily a continuation of her first book in the series, which is called Dark Shores. Dark Shores was like a pirate fantasy, and I read it last summer, and I went in not really expecting a whole lot, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. I was thoroughly entertained. I really liked the characters, but what I remember the most is the world was very vivid to me. And this book is the second book in the series, but it follows a different character. So the first book was like a complete story, and this follows a side character from the first book. So I'm really excited to get into the world and escape a little bit because Pachinko was really good. Okay, let's talk about Pachinko briefly. I really, really liked the first half of that book. The first half of the book was a 5 out of 5 for me. It was phenomenal. It was very, very close to being a perfect read. But then the second half kind of fell short a little bit. And here's why. First of all, you should absolutely read it. It was a phenomenal book. I loved it so much, and I never want my reviews to lead to someone not reading a book, ever. That would be my worst nightmare. If a book sounds good to you, please read it, because I am such a nitpicky, emotional reader that sometimes books just don't vibe with me depending on the time. But this book specifically, the only reason why I wouldn't say it was perfect for me personally is because I love a book that takes you into the mind of a character and takes you through a character journey, whereas this was more of a study of choices and ramifications and the effect that your choices can have on your family. I mean, it was so much more than that, but that approach specifically led to it being a lot of different characters, and towards the end I felt like we were following characters that I didn't necessarily care too much about, and I wanted to go back to our main character. Oh no, the air just came on. I wanted to go back to our main character, and that just led me to like noticing the length a little bit. It's very, very nitpicky. I really, really enjoyed it still. And if I absolutely had to give it a star rating, I would give it a 4 out of 5, no problem. But it's a lot more nuanced than that. It's phenomenal, and I highly recommend it. But those were my thoughts on it, and I still think that if it's on your list, you should read it because it was so good, and I'm so glad that I read it, and I learned so much, and I loved some of the characters. Some of the characters will stick with me. The air is getting louder, so I'm gonna stop talking now. Thank you for being here. I've got my cookies and my tea, and I think it's just like a little bit after 7. Let's see what the time is. 7:25, and I am going to curl up and read a bit more. I think I've only read for like 30 minutes so far today. These are very Canadian, and I never really liked them growing up, but I've had a very specific craving for them for weeks now, so I finally picked them up. They are maple cookies. This is the moment I have been thinking about all day, which was getting home, sitting in my bed with a cookie and some tea, and reading the night away. I'm very excited to start this book. But there are a couple things that I just wanted to mention that I've been thinking about. First of all, I was deeply inspired by Allison Pages here on YouTube to stop rating books. I've been watching her videos a lot lately, and the way that she approaches talking about books. I think that our enjoyment of books is very nuanced, it's very personal, and frankly, I get quite self-conscious when I'm talking about books because I'm a writer. First of all, I want to write. Because I'm a writer, I've written a book, I know how insanely difficult it is. I know how incredibly difficult it is to write a book. So I never want to bash someone else's writing. I think writing alone, the idea of writing, enjoyment of writing, all of that is so unbelievably subjective that I would never call someone a bad writer. I just wouldn't. I don't think that that is true. I also think that there's a very big difference between good writing and good storytelling. And I also think that everyone has their preference. Some people prefer better storytelling. Some people prefer better writing. Some people like character driven. Some people like plot. It is just so subjective that I get so in my head whenever I'm talking about books because first of all, I don't ever want to bash someone's work, and second of all, I never want to discourage reading. It would be my nightmare if someone said that they were not going to pick up a book because of something I said about it. So please don't ever do that. I personally don't really get swayed by negative reviews of books that I want to read or think will sound interesting. It's just one of those things when I'm talking about books and something that is so dear to my heart, which is writing and reading, and so I thought I would say that. This book is actually told in the same timeline as the first book, but it's just following 2 different characters, which I think is a really cool way of telling a story. Honestly, all I remember about the first book is the way that it made me feel, which was that I was pleasantly surprised by the story. I enjoyed the world building. I don't remember feeling like the characters were super rich, but everything else was working. So I'm hoping that this is the same vibes. We shall see. But frankly, after Pachinko, I just need something not necessarily low stakes, but just completely different than what that book was because it was very heartbreaking. I'm going to reset my little timer here and we're going to curl up and we're going to keep reading and probably read the night away. Hey, checking in really quick just to say that I realized my morning reading is so much slower than my afternoon, which makes perfect sense because obviously I'm tired and it takes a little bit to like dive into reading. And also I'm like staring out the window, I'm drinking my coffee, I'm just like taking it easy. I'm about 114 pages into Dark Skies, and I will say that I have no idea what's going on. I think that it's the world building in these books is very complicated. And it's not even that it's complicated, it's just hard to wrap your head around. But I'm starting to care more and more about the plot and the characters. I think the first few chapters just really confused me. But I really like it. I don't know what it is. There's something about this story that just is so readable to me. It's interesting. I think that there's more plot than romance in these books, and I like that because I love romance. I need romance like to really truly love a book, but I like a little bit more plot. I need there to be a story outside of the love story, and with these books it feels like there is. even though the world is very complicated and I don't know that I would be able to explain all of the politics, I'm still just enjoying the ride. So I'm liking it. It's exactly what I wanted post Pachinko, but that took me like almost an hour. I read for 52 minutes this morning. So I got dressed. Was that good? Did you see everything? I am gonna go to a coffee shop for just over an hour, a couple hours, because I really want to get some writing done before my classes. Sitting here laughing because I was editing my video for this coming week yesterday, and it's all about like a self-care reset and taking care of myself in very productive ways, you know, working out, doing things that I haven't done on my to-do list that were stressing me out, and feeding myself nutritious meals. I have eaten a lot of vegetables lately and it has made me feel good, and that is great. However, to this morning, I am just straight up eating leftover Domino's stuffed cheesy bread and some apple. I know this doesn't look like a whole lot for breakfast. I can't wake up and eat a huge breakfast. I tend to snack all throughout the morning. So this is like part one of breakfast. So please do not think that this is all that I'm going to eat until like I have lunch at 1. My reading so far, and do a little check-in. On Monday, I read 166 pages for a total of 1 hour and 25 minutes. On Tuesday, I read 114 pages for a total of 1 hour and 37 minutes. Yesterday, which was Wednesday, I read for 2 hours and 1 minute, and I read 112 pages. So hard to balance all of the things. A little bit of an update. I did not get a whole lot of reading done yesterday. I think in total I got 40 minutes. I will have to check that. I'm not sure. My test yesterday didn't really go as well as I was hoping. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't actually hoping it was going to go well because I was really stressed about it because it's really complicated. It's cataloging in library science. And it was really difficult, and normally I test quite well, and I just feel like I walked away from that going, I'd be happy if I passed. I literally am just hoping that I passed. We shall see. But at the end of the day yesterday, my head was just killing me. It was really stormy, and I'm really sensitive to weather and weather headaches. So I just was not feeling the best. So I didn't edit my video. Luckily, I started editing it, but I have probably like another hour and a bit left to go. So I'm gonna do that now before class. So I'm not gonna write, and I'm in my head about how I'm not gonna write. But once I get this video done, I will have all weekend to write and read. I don't think I'm gonna have a whole lot of schoolwork to worry about this weekend. So we're gonna continue this reading vlog into the weekend because I'm really hoping I can finish. Let me grab my book actually. I don't have too far to go and I don't know how I feel about this now. It's good. I'm still invested. I'm still escaping into the world. It's incredibly easy to read. I love, or I like strongly, the moments between the two main characters, but there's just not a whole lot of much going on. Not a whole lot of not much going on, but there's not a whole lot going on, and it's incredibly slow burn. It's just taking its time. Oh my gosh, this is just completely about to rip off. Yeah, we're gonna, my bookmark. I'm just gonna throw all of the fabric out because I feel like it's now just making a mess. It's dangerous for my cats. Anywho, one of my cats is using the litter box now. This is turning into pure chaos. I like it. I like the world, and it's offering me a nice little escape. And last night when I absolutely did not feel like reading, I told myself that I should just do it for at least 30 minutes, and it went by really easily. So gotta be thankful for that. It got me out of my head, and now I'm just simply procrastinating editing my video before classes today. I'm gonna do it. Let's get to it. I just bashed my ankle so hard. I am meeting Tom and we are gonna go to a coffee shop and we're gonna read a little bit because it's so nice out and I just kind of want to get out of the house a little bit. I finished Dark Skies. Positives, the things that I liked about this book. Very slow burn at the beginning. I like the world building and I also liked the characters in this story. I think ever slightly more than the first book. The pacing of this book was very confusing, if I'm being completely blunt. We are talking a very long book, a very slow burn, and I feel like so much happened in this book, yet nothing happened in this book. There's just so much plot shoved into that slow burn, so the pace is moving really slow, but there are just so many things that are happening, but they're not like high stakes, or they're all like super high stakes and there's one massive high stake thing after the other that it just kind of starts becoming like I'm numb to whatever you're going to reveal to me. I feel like this book had all of those issues, and I don't know if I want to read on because I don't know if I truly ended up caring that much towards the end. I don't know if I really care to like continue on with these characters and see where they end up. I will say that these are good summer fantasy reads. I don't know why. I just feel like these are the type of fantasy books that I want to read in the summertime. You know, there's fantasy books that you want to read in the winter, and then there's fantasy books that are perfect for summer. This is how my brain works. I don't know if anyone else out there in the ether agrees with me, but these are good summertime books. Another positive is that I personally feel like all of the revelations, everything that was happening did make sense and there wasn't anything super left field for me. I don't know, we'll see. I'm not gonna go out and get the next book until like at least next summer. I feel like I'm super self-conscious about reviewing books online because I just like books and I tend to be quite positive, or at least find the positive. Books deserve to be consumed. Hard stop. We're feeling good, and I think I'm gonna dive right back into the world of historical fiction with my next read. I'm going to read The Four Winds by Hannah. I almost said Hannah Kent. Hannah Kent is another very, very famous author. Kristen Hannah. I read The Nightingale many, many, many years ago. Like I think when I was in university maybe, or just after university, and I still think about that book quite a bit. There are moments in that book that I remember. There's like this scene where one of the characters is making a dinner and it's like a fish dinner and it sounded so good. And yes, that is what sticks in my mind sometimes with reading, is the description of food. If there is vivid descriptions of food in a book, I tend to love that book. Anywho, moving on from that tangent. I still think about that book. I still think about that plot. I'm pretty sure there's a movie in development with the Fanning sisters, and I'm so excited about that. I think that Dakota and Elle Fanning will be so good in those roles. But I haven't read anything from Kristen Hanna since, and I think it's because I fell out of my historical fiction phase a little bit when I dove headfirst into YA fantasy. I'm just feeling like reading more historical fiction this summer, and we're leaning into it. Anyway, this is a really big preamble to just tell you that I'm planning to read this book. What is this book about? This book is about a family who is struggling during the Great Depression. I feel like it is a good historical fiction to read in the summer. This is set in the United States, and we follow a family while they struggle to find jobs and survive during the Great Depression. And I am really excited about it because Kristen Hanna has written a ton of historical fiction. I have the hiccups right now, so it's been really, really hard to keep this energy up because I just keep having to stop and hiccup. But I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Let's go read. Let's start a new book today. I will check in with how much I've read for the past couple days in a minute. Okay, wait, actually I'm back. Let's pick out a bookmark together to go with this book. I feel like I want, oh, it's upside down. I feel like I want a big bookmark. Let's do one with a tassel. Let's see. All right, let's see here. Wow, I have so many bookmarks. What are we feeling? Some of these are just bookstores. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite romances of all time. Okay, this is my sacred bookmark. This is my Tolstoy bookmark, and I ruined it for myself because I used it to read War and Peace for the first time, and I have not been able to use it for anything but Tolstoy ever since, but it is a gorgeous bookmark and I love it so much. But I'm like, I can't. I am rereading War and Peace this fall, so I will get to use this again. This one might be fun just because it's kind of like the nature on here. Rigona Suli Art from Germany did these, and I love them so much. She's my favorite artist for bookmarks. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. I sincerely hope that was riveting for you. It is many, many days later. It is Friday, actually, and I wanted to wrap up all of my reading that I did this week in this video. You saw every single day I read around an hour and 30 minutes every single day. Some days got all the way up to 2, some days only got to 40. Not surprising, my Sunday really was a lot of reading. That does not surprise me because I tend to read every single Sunday afternoon once I'm done all of the things, I just sit and I read until it's time to make dinner. I did finish The Four Winds, but I finished it on Monday, so I didn't finish it in this wrap up, but I will talk about my thoughts. Really quickly, just to wrap up, just to add up all of the math, from Monday to Sunday, so 7 days, I read a total of 11 hours and 40 minutes, and the total pages read was 959 pages. So that's quite a bit. That makes a lot of sense as to why I can finish a couple books a week. I'm sure that's not the case for every single week, but I definitely feel like that is a good average and a good indication of how much I actually read in a week or a day. Good stuff. Now, what did I think about The Four Winds? Okay, this was fine. This was fine. It was a really solid historical fiction. The positives were I really liked the history. I know about the Great Depression, but I know very little about the Dust Bowl, and I don't really know a whole lot of American history around the Great Depression. Obviously, I'm Canadian. I learned about the Canadian side of it, but it was really interesting to learn about the migrations that happened and the dust storms. Like, the descriptions of the dust storms that happened were pretty harrowing, and the earth literally cracking open because it was so dry, and the desperation of the people, and how long it actually lasted. I didn't, in my mind, for some reason, this was like a year thing and then it was done. I didn't really think about it spanning multiple years, which was probably pretty dumb on my part, but this really enlightened me in that sense. But what I did not like about it was mainly the main character. I did not like her. I felt like she was unnecessarily not confident in herself, and it drove me a little crazy. I felt like we didn't really get the sense of why she was so insecure and why she thought so little of herself beyond the poor treatment of others. I just don't think it was fleshed out very well. It also did this thing at the very beginning, which I really don't like when books do, which is talk about how ugly the main character feels when she is described in a very beautiful, traditional, beautiful way. Our main character in this book is 6 foot, thin, and blonde with, I believe, blue eyes, which is very annoyingly the norm for beauty, and yet she was like, I'm so ugly and no man would ever want to marry me. That was actually her reasoning for not being married, is that she was so ugly, which I just didn't really like. I'm calling it the beauty norms because that's just like traditionally what society finds beautiful, not because of what I find beautiful. And also on top of that, other characters called her beautiful. That being said, my favorite book does the exact same thing. So it's not a deal breaker for me in a book necessarily. If the book is rich enough all around, and if the character develops enough and has strength in other capacities, I can overlook something like that because I feel like that's very tropey and something that is done a lot in books. This one just did not have that, and that's a little bit of a bummer, but not too much because I still enjoyed it. I will still read more from Kristen Hanna too, because I think what I was really looking for in this book was solid historical fiction, and I got it. I don't necessarily have to love the characters or love the book entirely to enjoy it, because I learned a lot of history, and she did a good job at it, in my opinion. I don't know anything about the history, so I feel like I walked away understanding a little bit more, and that's all I can ask in a book. I want to walk away a little bit more enriched than when I left. All in all, it was a good experience. I did enjoy it. So there we have it. That is my reading week. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you are staying creative wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. I'm laughing because life is crazy right now, and I'm doing all the things, and who knows in this era of chaos when the next video will be. But please know I am trying my hardest. So see you next time.